Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy entrepreneurs, professionals, and business owners publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable experts across the country and in your town. Joining me on this segment is Russ McClellan. He's the founder of Frontline Real Estate, which is powered by Keller Williams. He's also the principal designated broker at Keller Williams, north central part of Washington State. Russ, welcome to the program.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. And thank you for joining me. Russ, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically the types of clients that you serve.
Yeah, you bet. I actually grew up in a little town called Lake Chelan, Washington, which is about 160 miles east of Seattle in Washington State. And I've been in real estate about 32, 33 years all of a sudden. I know I had a lot more hair when I started, so it's been a while. Recently, about 2.5 years ago, I opened a real estate franchise, a Keller Williams franchise, right in the middle of Washington State, in the north central part. And so now we're spread out. We have a large geographical territory. We're running now in going into our third full calendar year. We're at about 70 real estate agents. And for our market, just to put it in perspective, we only have about 400 real estate agents in the entire MLS. So in less than 3 years, we're gaining market share. We're number one in agent count. But it's a very dynamic market. It's kind of an interesting place because we get about 300 days of sunshine a year. And when a lot of people think around the country and around the world, they think of Seattle, they think of Amazon, Microsoft, Costco, maybe some of these large Starbucks, of course. And they also think about rain.
That's right.
And so what happens is we have right between us and Seattle, there's the North Cascades mountain range. So the precipitation comes off the ocean, drops all that water on Seattle. And by the time the cloud patterns come over to the eastern part of the state, we get the sunshine. It dropped all the water on the mountains. So by and large, we're a four-season town. I live next to one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. It's called Lake Chelan. It's 55 miles long and 1,500 feet deep, with 8,000-foot mountain peak on the edge, glacier fed. So when you think about that combined with the Columbia River, which runs right next to it, all the way to the ocean, it's historically been a pretty good place for tourism, second homes, retirement, from Puget Sound when people are ready to get out of the city.
That sounds like a wonderful place, and you definitely want to not ride along that reputation of rain from Seattle. You're like, no, not at all. So, Russ, tell us a little bit about the elephant in the room, the pandemic and these novel times that the world is going through. How has that affected your area of the market? And, what's it like today?
Yeah, well, think about this. For many years, especially in towns like mine, Lake Chelan, or another town which is called the Leavenworth, Washington, or what often is known as the Bavarian Village, which is even closer to Seattle. Those are more tourism destinations historically. So those markets would attract buyers such as second home buyers and investors and then retirees, but very few primary residences. Then we have other areas of our market, Wenatchee, which is where the main office of ours is the hub, so to speak. That's been more, I'm going to sell to people that are actually living in that area and working in that area. So we actually have a local economy. Then we have this influx of the Seattle-based economy, which is a lot more lucrative, right? There's just a lot more employment in a metropolitan area. Well, what COVID has done, and I call it, and I think many people are now terming it forced adoption of technology over the last year. Many employers had no choice, as we know, to figure out a way to stay open when we couldn't stay open. Well, therefore, here we go. We're talking on Zoom. We're talking on, so many other outlets. For our market, what that did is unlocked a war chest of buyers. Because now, think about it. If you could live on a lake with 300 days of sunshine and you're only a 2.5, 3-hour drive back to Seattle, and you can sell your 2-bedroom condo in Seattle for $1.5 million and come over and buy a beautiful brand new estate for, $700,000-800,000 and make the same kind of money you used to have to stay in Seattle to make, it's a pretty exciting time. So on one hand, our market is booming. Our prices are appreciating. I think we were about 17% across the board in the aggregate last year. However, we're also down about 75% in inventory. So I kind of joke around and I say, we've been fishing out of a stock pond. and we're not replenishing it fast enough. And I know that's a common problem in a lot of areas, but it's a very different climate now because of that unlocking of the war chest of primary resident buyers.
And I can imagine with the mass exodus from California, neighboring California, I imagine that's been a boost to the economy as well.
Yeah, a lot of times people will go from California to Seattle. As far as employment, the tech companies in Seattle are heavy. So there's a lot of people that get there and then realize that, wait a minute, I can just go over the hill and have sunshine and a desert climate essentially in 4 seasons. Wow, that's what I'm going to do. So we definitely get people from California to our area, but many people from all over the world that land in Seattle, and then they know about that because that's where they're going to be employed. And now with COVID, they're looking around and starting to hear about these smaller communities that have an incredible lifestyle.
What are you seeing more of? You mentioned that you've got the best of both worlds there. You've got some folks looking for second homes and vacation homes, and then you've got folks for primary residences. What are you seeing more of today?
Yeah, right now I'm seeing more people than I've ever seen. And, in most of our markets, Seattle's been a very Puget Sound, I say Seattle, but it's really Puget Sound area, which encompasses all the way north to like Everett, Washington, all the way south to like Tacoma. Seattle's kind of in the middle of that I-5 corridor. Well, they've been a pretty heavy buyer pool for us for a long time. The difference is now they're becoming more emotional because they're now maybe looking to move and live there full time, or at least a much larger percentage of the time in their second home. So we're seeing an influx of population as well as just investment for the first time in my career.
Yeah, so it sounds like people, now they're getting more serious. They have a lot more, concerns. What are the biggest things people are looking for when they're now looking for a primary residence that they're going to be able to live and work out of? What are they looking for these days more than
Uh,
any other time?
well, we have two markets. What happens when you raise the floor? So try to imagine our local economy just isn't as lucrative. So when you bring a whole influx of people from another economic base, that's much more lucrative, meaning the wages are much higher. And they have built-in equity in a lot of the people that have invested based on the appreciation in Seattle. It's kind of an unfair advantage. So you sell something in Seattle, you come over, you have an abundance of cash, you're making more money than the local economy by far, especially if you can work remotely. And so the floor price has risen dramatically. So we're basically scrambling to find inventory for a lot of the people that live in my hometown and others or other towns around me. On the other hand, so those buyers are looking for affordability, trying to find the highest quality home they can, in between that $300,000 and $500,000 price point is becoming very difficult. We're getting 10, 15 offers on every listing, and they're just gobbled up and we're not getting the inventory. But we also have supply constraints that prevent us from developing. One of them is unusual, but in our county, which is Chelan County, about 88% of the land is owned by the government. And a lot of people don't realize, they see a lot of mountains, they see a lot of land, but they might think it's privately held that could be used for future development and growth, but it's not. Then you have topography problems, like our valley was cut by a glacier, millions of years ago. So all of a sudden, you have these steep slopes, very difficult to build on. You have zoning and infrastructure issues, and then you have governmental regulation. So you kind of stack all these supply constraints, and money alone, it's not as easy as just, here, I have money and I want to go develop real estate. It takes a long time, and it really does require a lot of focus. And consequently, when you're selling more than you're building, you end up having this squeeze. You look at to your question, you look at the buyers coming from Seattle, they're looking for quality, right? They want they make more money. They typically have more cash to put down, and they're just looking for high quality products. And because the growth has occurred so fast, we've kind of gobbled a lot of that up. And now we're starting to see the builders come, but it's a slow process because your big companies have a hard time logistically to figure out, how do I go to a smaller community and build a lot of houses, including labor.
So with so much competition coming in, what's going to arm a buyer for success? Should they be pre-qualified more, like be ready to go, have the best offer? What's going to be their keys to success with all the competition they're up against?
Yeah, really understanding the financials and being able to articulate your strength financially, and with predictability. Those are a couple things. We're seeing this catch-22 where people are starting to remove inspection contingencies. They're, for the most part, they're coming qualified, but you definitely want to have an underwritten qualified letter, not just that pre-qual letter you can pull off the internet. That's not as, not that it's not true, it's just that it's a little harder for people to understand. So having that underwritten approval where your mortgage broker or banker has actually verified your employment, verified your income, and the only thing that you would be literally waiting on is an appraisal in order to do the financing. So having some homework done and doing a good job on the front end is becoming more important. And then of course, if you're competing against cash, it's harder. And I believe this. I believe that you should come in as strong as you can in order to put yourself in the best position you can. Because what I'm afraid that might happen, and I know you can talk to 100 economists in our country right now, you'll probably get 100 opinions of what's going to happen next, or a year from now, or 2 years from now. But what I'm concerned with the lack of inventory in north central Washington state and the supply constraints I mentioned, I'm afraid that we're going to see serious appreciation for quite some time, especially with that unlocking of a war chest of primary resident buyers that for the first time in history can make the same amount of money and live where the sun shines more. So to me, I'm afraid between that and the potential inflationary pressures and interest rates that might rise, maybe it's wise to pay a little more in present value terms, offer, make a little stronger offer and get something today rather than take the risk of tomorrow.
Sounds like a great opportunity right now. Russ, tell us a little bit about what got you here. What inspired you to get into real estate to begin with and start serving clients? How'd you get started?
Yeah. Well, I was in college actually getting a finance degree and an econ. I ended up with an econ minor and a finance degree. And I had met a buddy in class. I was 19 years old. And I said, "Hey, what are you going to do after you get out of college?" And he says, "I don't know." I said, "Why don't we open a real estate company?" He said, this was in 1991. So I think the last job I had was in 1986 or 87, something like that, where I was in college. So I got out, and right before that, I interviewed with a stock brokerage while I was thinking about being a stockbroker. I interviewed with a law firm, was thinking about going to law school. And I introduced myself to a real estate broker, and the broker hired me right on the spot. And I was very happy and excited. So I got into it. It wasn't until years later I realized that they hire anybody, so it wasn't that special. But no, I loved helping people. I loved sharing my hometown, and I came from an agricultural background. I grew up on a little apple orchard back when you could support a family with 10, 15 acres of apples. And we for years and years raised some of the best apples in the world. Now, since then, we've transcended into the grape business. And now we have, 40, 50 wineries. So we're kind of like a little mini Napa Valley where we live. So it's a beautiful place to raise a family. I had kids early. So now I have a 29-year-old doctor of audiology and a 24-year-old retired United States Marine guy that just got out of the military, my son. So it was just a blessed place to live. I feel very lucky, and to be able to share it with so many clients that have ultimately become my friends. It's been intriguing. Good times.
It sounds like a much more exciting thing to do for work, is sharing properties as opposed to just numbers on a page as a stockbroker.
Yeah. I'm glad it worked out. Sometimes you just get lucky, but you also have to have, as a self-employed person, as I'm sure are aware, it's not all easy. I mean, it's, you go through ups and downs. The Great Recession wasn't pleasant for anybody. Yet, if it gets in your blood, and real estate's something that you're passionate about, you learn as you go. So the way I look at it, you just fail forward sometimes and pick yourself up and keep trucking and try to learn, and try not to make that mistake more than 2 or 3 times.
And as long as you're doing something that you're passionate about, it doesn't really feel like work, and you can get through all those, trials and tribulations, if you will.
Yeah.
Russ, for our audience out there listening that's in your area or said, "Hey, I want to live where it's sunny," more than not, and would like to connect with you and learn more, how do they find you?
Yeah, you bet. Well, you can go to our website, which is my team, Frontline Real Estate, powered by Keller Williams. That's at frontlinerealestate.com. So that's pretty straightforward. You can also give me a call at my office at 509-682-1111, or you can email me at russ@frontlinerealestate.com.
Russ, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you, Mark. I feel very honored to be on your show. Appreciate it.
Russ McClellan, he's the founder of Frontline Real Estate powered by Keller Williams. He's also the principal and designated broker of Keller Williams North Central, part of Washington State. This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals, entrepreneurs, and business owners publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for tuning in.